Good morning. Welcome to another session on environmental impact assessment.
So we shall continue with Unit 2, Methodologies. Course outcome, elucidate the methods of EIA with case studies. Learning outcome, discuss the methods used in EIA. Specific outcomes, explanation of the matrix method of EIA. So we already started this topic on matrix method of EIA, and we already seen some of the characteristics of this method. So we'll continue from wherever we left in this session. So we closed here, right? In the last session, I explained this uh, diagram, which is representing a simple matrix method of application for a particular project. So some of the other characteristics of matrices, it is necessary to define the spatial boundaries of environmental factors, the temporal phases and specific actions associated with the project, and the impact rating or summarization scales used in the matrix. Meaning there, what they're saying is you need to specify the physical boundary of the project, how much time it will take, what are the specific actions. If at all you have some ratings or some scalings, those things also can be included. A matrix should be considered as a tool for purpose of analysis, with the key need being to clearly state the rationale utilized for the impact ratings assigned to a given temporal phase and project action and a given spatial boundary and environmental factor. Right? So you need to clearly state the reason behind your impact ratings. If at all you are going to give some impact ratings, you know, just like we did in scaling, we are going to give some scaling effect to the different environmental factors or impacts. So when you give some scaling, you need to specify the reason why you are giving that scale. The development of one or more preliminary matrices can be a useful technique in discussing a proposed action and its potential environmental impacts. This can be helpful in the early stages of a study to assist each member in understanding the implications of the project and developing detailed plans for more extensive studies on particular factors and impacts. So what they're saying is it is good to start with the preliminary matrix and then try to propose, try to find out the effect of the proposed project before going into uh, further studies, right? So because this helps in developing detailed plans for extensive studies of various impacts. The interpretation of impact ratings should be carefully and critically considered, particularly when realizing that there may be large differences in spatial boundaries as well as temporal phases for a proposed project. Right. So when you give some impact ratings and find out some, come to some conclusion, you need to interpret those things more carefully, right? Especially when the project is a very big one, spatial boundary is very large, and it is going for a very long duration. Then you need to consider this impact ratings more critically. Interaction matrices can be useful for delineating the impacts of the first and second or multiple phases of a two-phase or multi-phase project. The cumulative impacts of a project, when considered relative to the other past, present, and reasonably uh, foreseeable future actions in the area, and the potential positive effects of mitigation measures. So what they are saying is the interaction matrices will be useful in finding out the impacts, right? Um, in the first phase, second phase, or multiple phases of a particular project. Uh, it can also help in it also helps in finding out the cumulative impacts of a project, right? Um Relative to the past. When comparing to the past, what will be the cumulative effect? Obviously, when you take cumulative effect, you have to see the present, you'll have to see the past, you'll have to see the future, meaning how the impact is getting added up over time, right? And also, if possible, some potential positive effects of reducing the impacts, what will happen, that can also be considered in when you consider the interaction matrix. If interaction matrices are used to display comparisons between different alternatives, it is necessary to use the same basic matrix in terms of spatial boundaries and environmental factors and temporal phases and project actions for each alternative being analyzed. Completion of such matrices can provide a basis for trade-off analysis. Right, so basic matrix is always the same. Right, when you're comparing with different alternatives, the alternatives can be put in different matrices, but your basic matrix for comparison will always be the same. That is what they are saying here. Impact qualification and comparisons to relevant standards can provide a valuable basis for assignment of impact ratings to different project actions and environmental factors. Right, so comparing to the existing standards can provide a basis for assigning the impact ratings. That's what they're saying in point 7. Point 8, color codes can be used to display and communicate information on anticipated impacts. For example, beneficial impacts can be shown using green or shades of green, whereas adverse impacts should be depicted in red or shades of red. Impact matrices can be used without the incorporation of number, letter, or color ratings. For example, circles of varying size can be used to denote the ranges of the impacts. Either you use colors, right? You can use colors to tell what is a positive impact, meaning green shade indicates positive impact, red shade is negative impact. Either you can do that, or you can also use different symbols. Like you take a circle and show a small circle to indicate the impact is very small, a large circle to indicate the impact is very large. One of the concerns related to the interaction matrices is that project actions and environmental factors are artificially separated when they should be considered together. So it is possible to use footnotes in matrix to identify groups of actions, factors, and impacts which should be considered together. This would allow the delineation of primary and secondary effect of projects. So what they are saying here is that you should not see everything separately. You should see the impact of the different phases of the project on the environment. So what you can do is you can provide some footnotes. Footnotes means at the bottom you can write something, to tell that these two groups are interrelated, or something like that, to tell them that you are supposed to see everything together. Don't see everything in a separated manner. The development of a preliminary interaction matrix does not mean that it should be included in the subsequent EA or EAS. Right, so development of a preliminary interaction matrix does not mean that it would have to be included in the subsequent uh, environmental impact assessment or environmental impact statement. The preliminary matrix could be used as an internal working tool in study planning and development. Right, so what they're saying is that you have made some preliminary interaction matrix, right? Does not mean that you have to include only that, right? You can further work on that, do some other studies, planning and development, and that can be included in the environmental impact statement. Right, it's not necessary that you have to include only the preliminary interaction matrix. You can do further studies and develop further on that particular matrix. It is possible to utilize impact weightings for environmental factors and project actions in a simple interaction matrix. If this approach is chosen, it is necessary to carefully delineate and rationale upon which differential importance weights have been assigned. Composite indices can be developed for various alternatives by summing up the products of the important weights and the impact ratings. It's similar to what we have told in the last slide, where they're saying that you should have a reason why you are giving some different weights. Usage of an interaction matrix forces the consideration of actions and impacts related to a proposed project within the context of other related actions and impacts. In other words, the matrix will prevent overriding attention being given to one particular action of environmental factors. So what they're saying is that using an interaction matrix will enable you to consider the action and impacts related to a proposed project with the context of other related actions and impacts. Right, so what they're saying is that you will be able to see everything in relation with other factors. So it is not providing particular attention on only a particular environmental factor. So interaction matrix methodologies, right? So this is just an example of what we have seen. In interaction matrix method, project actions or activities will be displayed on one axis with environmental factors listed on the other axis. We already seen this example in the last session. If a particular activity is likely to cause an effect on the environmental factor, it will be noted at the intersection point of the matrix. Intersection point in the matrix. The magnitude of separate or combined effects and their important considerations will also be considered, right? So here you can see that what are the different actions are given. The environmental factors are provided on the right side, right? So in the last session we have seen a very simple matrix. So this is little bit more complicated in the sense like they have different actions being elaborated on the left hand side of your table. The right hand side of the table provides only the environmental factors, right? But here also they have elaborated. You can see in each of them they are given quite a few environmental factors, right? So I am not reading all the environmental factors, you can just go through them, right? So further, some more environmental factors, right? Flora, fauna, biological conditions. So in the last slide, they told about earth, water, atmosphere, and different processes. Here, what they're saying is they're saying about the biological conditions, flora, plants, animals. On the left hand side, you have the different actions to be taken, which is elaborated. Furthermore, some more factors, cultural factors, like related to land and recreation facilities. So left hand side, we have seen about 4 or 5 activities, that is modification of the regime, meaning you are changing the uh, topographical features of that particular area, transformation of the land and construction activities, resource extraction, meaning you are extracting some resources, processing something, doing some processing, land alteration, right? Here changes in traffic, waste emplacement and treatment, right? So you can just go through the whole list, okay? So I'm not elaborating the entire table, right? So procedure for development of a specific and simple interaction matrix, right? So what is the procedure? List all the anticipated project actions and group them together according to the temporal phase, such as construction, operation, post operation. That is what we have seen in the last slide. They have listed all the different phases of a particular uh, project activity, right? List all the pertinent environmental factors from the environmental setting and group them according to physical, chemical, biological, cultural, socioeconomic, and based on spatial considerations such as site, region, upstream, downstream, all those things. So that is also provided in the last slide. You have seen on the right hand side there are a list of environmental factors and they are given an elaborate what do you say? They are given elaborate items in each particular category. Discuss the preliminary matrix with the study team members and or advisors to the team or study manager. Decide on the impact rating scheme, for example, using numbers or letters or colors, which we have talked about earlier. Talk through the matrix as a team and make ratings and notes in order to identify and summarize the impacts. Right. So this is the what was told in the last slide. So you make some table like this, and then you give the scale of importance, right? The scale of the present condition, scale of management. On the uh, first column you have all the environmental factors, so how much importance to give for each factor, what is their present condition, whether it's good or bad, how to manage them, it is easy to manage them or difficult to manage them, something like that. So coming to the end of this session, actually we have something called the stepped matrix technique for networks. So this is a little bit more complicated and I'm not going to elaborate so much on this, but you should know what it is. So when you have a matrix, we have seen some simple matrix and we have seen a little more complicated matrix with elaboration of each category into various factors, right? This one is complicated in the sense like how they are all interrelated is shown in this particular diagram. This is actually a dam or reservoir related project. So on the left hand side, they given all the what do you say, different components, right? And you can see that what is the initial condition, what is the changes in the condition, what will be the final condition of the particular environment has been segregated in terms of different columns for each phase of the project, right? So for each phase of the project, they are saying initially what will happen, there will be loss of some forest. Finally, what happened? There will be climate change. Initially, what happens? More job opportunities. So, in between, more income. Standard of living is improved at the end. So, you have a good road network. So, more communication. So, better social economics, right? So something like that. So I'm not elaborating. You can just go through the whole diagram for yourself, and you can understand what they are actually saying. It's very simple. So you got different components of a project, right? And the next column shows the different phases, and the last table, which is again split up into three columns, says what happens initially, what happens in the middle phase, or after some time, and finally what happens, whether it's a good or bad thing, and if it is good or bad, what really happens, improve health or loss of health, something like that. So we'll close the session here because I'm running out of time. Thank you.
Thus, we come to the end of this session. Thank you for your participation. Looking forward to meeting you in the next session.